They said it was a paradise. They called it Saudi Venezuela. 1990s, the wealthiest nation in South America, possessor of 300 billion barrels of oil reserves. The math seemed infinite. The parties seemed endless. Then the variables changed. Between 2013 and 2023, living standards collapsed by 74%. The economy contracted by 80%. 5 million% inflation. It wasn't a war, it wasn't an asteroid, it was a calculation, a specific sequence of fiscal choices. Now look at your screen. Look at your grocery bill. Look at the national debt clock, $38.45 trillion. The same sequence has started here. The variables are bigger, the fall will be harder. The collapse isn't a possibility, it is a mathematical certainty. We're just waiting for the remainder. You need to understand the anatomy of the murder. How does a rich nation commit suicide? Venezuela, 2014, the trigger pull. Oil prices crash from $100 a barrel to $40. The state had no savings. They spent the windfall on narratives, on buying loyalty. When the revenue stopped, the spending didn't. So they turned to the only tool left, the printer. The Central Bank of Venezuela gutted its independence. It became a photocopier for the regime. They expanded the money supply by 20 to 30% per month, not per year, per month. Compound that. Do the math. In 2014, inflation hit 69%, highest in the world. By 2015, 181%. By 2016, 800%. By 2018, 1,700,000%. A cup of coffee cost a backpack of cash. The currency became trash, garbage. People started weighing money instead of counting it. This is the blueprint. Fiscal dominance. The government spends what it cannot tax. The central bank prints the difference. The currency dies. The productive economy vanishes. 1,000 firms expropriated. Price controls on rice, on toilet paper. Shortages. Hunger. 7.7 million people fled the country. That is the entire population of Washington state, gone, walking to Colombia, walking to Chile, because the math broke. Now, pivot to Washington, D.C., December 2025. The parallels are not subtle, they are screaming. The number is $38.45 trillion, the U.S. national debt. December 2025, that is 124% of GDP. We owe more than the entire value of everything we produce. In 2024, the deficit was $1.8 trillion. We spent $1.8 trillion more than we collected in a single year. Who pays the difference? Nobody. It is funded by new debt. It is funded by the printer. The M2 money supply, the measure of cash in the system. November 2025, $22.32 trillion. In 2019, it was $15 trillion. They printed $7 trillion in 5 years. 40% of all U.S. dollars in existence were created since 2020. This is the Venezuela Phase 1 moment, the expansion of the monetary base to cover the fiscal gap. But here's the killer variable: interest. In 2025, the average interest rate on that debt is 3.36%. It sounds low until you apply it to $38 trillion. The annualized interest cost is over $1.13 trillion. We spend more on interest payments than we do on the military. We spend more on interest than on Medicare. The debt is now the largest line item in the budget. We are borrowing money just to pay the interest on the money we borrowed. This is a Ponzi scheme, by definition. Jamie Dimon knows it, the CEO of JPMorgan Chase. He isn't a radical, he is the system, and he is terrified. It will bite eventually, he says. You can't just keep borrowing money endlessly. He warns of a rebellion in the bond market, when the world stops buying the debt, when the yield spikes, when the U.S. government defaults, not by saying we won't pay, but by paying in a currency that is worthless. The Congressional Budget Office projects debt to GDP of 535% by 2099. There is no 2099, not for this dollar. The math prohibits it. They call it transitory. They call it cooling. They are lying. December 2025, official CPI is 2.7%. They pat themselves on the back. Mission accomplished. But you don't live in the CPI. You live in the grocery store. Look at the aggregate. Since 2020, food prices are up 29.5%. Some categories much worse. Eggs hit a 49.3% increase at the peak. Beef and veal up 13.9% in August 2025 alone. They predict another 11.6% jump in 2025. This isn't cooling, this is a permanent ratcheting of misery. Did your paycheck go up 49%? No. Real wages are dead. From 2021 to 2025, inflation-adjusted wages for the middle class flatlined. Real average hourly earnings are down 5.7% from the 1972 peak. You are working harder, you are producing more, and you are poorer than your grandfather, who had a high school diploma and a single income. This is the theft. Inflation is a tax that no one voted for. It is a wealth transfer from the poor to the asset holders. Jerome Powell talks about pain. Pain is necessary to restore price stability. Whose pain? Not his, not the bank's, yours. In 2025, electricity prices rose 6.7%. Food away from home rose 4.1%. You sit in the dark, you eat less, you downgrade your life, while the M2 money supply sits at $22.32 trillion, while the lobbying industry spends $4.5 billion to keep the game rigged. This is the Venezuela trajectory. First, the denial, then the scarcity, then the panic.
The American dream was a house, a plot of land, ownership. That dream is being liquidated. 2025, investors bought 33% of all single-family homes sold in Q2. 33%, 1 in 3 houses, gone into the portfolios of BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and the massive private equity firms you've never heard of, Pretium, Invitation Homes. They pay cash. 62.3% of investor purchases were all cash. You need a mortgage. Rates are 6.7%. You can't compete. You lose the bid every time. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, he writes his 2025 annual letter. He talks about infrastructure, private markets, tokenization. He says the classic 60-40 portfolio is dead. Why? Because he knows the paper money is doomed. Smart money is fleeing the dollar. They're buying real assets, concrete, copper, land, housing. They're turning your home into a financialized product, a token on a blockchain, tradable, liquid, and owned by them. The result is feudalism. Rent in Miami is 37.1% of household income. In Los Angeles, 37%. In New York, 36.7%. The affordability line is 30%. We crossed it years ago. Rents are up 16.5% nationally since 2019. In Montana, up 20.7% in 2025. In Idaho, up 20.3%. There is no escape. The rural haven is closed. The probability of a renter becoming a homeowner dropped to 33.9% in 2025. A permanent underclass, serfs in a digital kingdom. They own the house, you own the subscription. And when the dollar collapses, they still own the house. You hold the worthless paper. It's a perfect hedge for them. For 50 years, the deal was simple, the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia sells oil. The world pays in US dollars. Saudi Arabia buys US Treasury bonds. It funded the empire. It allowed us to run deficits without consequence. June 9th, 2024. On June 9th, 2024, the 1974 U.S.-Saudi security agreement expired. Public debate focused on the semantics of renewal. This is distraction. The structural reality is the settlement currency. The paper treaty is secondary to the ledger entries. The flow has reversed. The flow of money matters, and the flow has reversed. Look at the actions. Saudi Arabia joined Project M-Bridge, a digital currency platform led by China, built to bypass the U.S. dollar, bypass SWIFT. In 2025, M-Bridge processed $55 billion in transactions. 95% of that volume was the digital yuan, not dollars, yuan. Saudi Arabia and China signed a $7 billion currency swap. Saudi Aramco is investing 240 billion yuan in China, building refineries in Fujian. This isn't a test, this is a migration. The petrodollar is being replaced by the petro-yuan and the petro-gold. China is accumulating gold at a frantic pace. Official reserves, 2,336 tons. Real reserves, likely double. Central banks globally bought over 1,000 tons a year in 2022, 2023, 2024. Record levels. Why? Because they saw what happened to Russia. We froze their assets. We weaponized the dollar. So the world is leaving. BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia. They control 50% of global gold production. October 2025, they launched the Unit Pilot, a trade settlement currency, 40% gold, 60% BRICS currencies. Think about the implication. If nations trade oil for a gold-backed digital token, the mathematical necessity of holding U.S. debt evaporates. Demand for the dollar collapses. Trillions held overseas flood back to the domestic ledger. Trillions of dollars currently held overseas will flood back to the U.S. The supply of dollars in America will explode. Hyperinflation, not transitory, existential. Gold hit $4,028 per ounce in October 2025, up 23% in a year. The market is screaming. The exits are closing. A currency is confidence. It is a belief. When the belief dies, the currency dies, and the belief is dead. 1958, 73% of Americans trusted the government. 2025, 17%. 17%, an all-time low. 11% trust TV news. 16% trust newspapers. The institutions have failed, and they're profiting from the failure. Lobbying spending hit a record $4.5 billion in 2024. Pharmaceutical companies spent $387 billion. Insurance companies, $153 million. They buy the regulations. They write the loopholes. Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, top lobbying firm, $67.9 million in revenue. They get rich, you get regulations, you get inflation. The social contract is broken. When people stop trusting the ballot box, they turn to the ammo box. The Global Peace Index 2025 shows the U.S. is deteriorating. Political instability is a Tier 1 threat. The Department of Homeland Security warns of violent extremist responses. Left-wing terrorism is at a 30-year high in 2025. Right-wing militias are mobilizing. The center cannot hold. The polarization is not a bug. It is a feature of economic collapse. When the pie shrinks, when the rent takes 40% of your income, when the grocery bill doubles, you look for an enemy. You look for a scapegoat. The system efficiently provides one. The geopolitical vacuum is filling. The empire is insolvent. It's already happening. The violence isn't theoretical, it is physical. June 6, 2025, Los Angeles. Protests against mass deportations turn into riots. The National Guard is federalized. 2,000 troops on the streets of an American city. Marines deployed. This is not normal. This is a war zone. June 2025, Portland. Federal agents firing crowd control munitions from rooftops. Fires at the ICE field office. October 2025, the No Kings protests. 2,700 locations across the U.S., from Anchorage to Miami. 80,000 in Phoenix, 80,000 in San Diego. The country is a powder keg, and the economy is the fuse. This is the Venezuelan trajectory. First, the economic collapse, then the social unrest, then the authoritarian crackdown. The government will not shrink. It will expand. It will use the crisis to seize more power, just like they seized 1,000 companies, just like they controlled prices, just like they controlled the narrative. The 2025 Homeland Threat Assessment warns of attacks on critical infrastructure, the grid, the water, the data. We are vulnerable. A fractured nation cannot service a $38 trillion debt. A fractured nation cannot project power globally. A fractured nation collapses from within. The global power fragmentation is here. The wolves are circling, and the empire is bleeding. Here is the cold, hard truth. There is no way out. The math prohibits a solution. To fix the debt, we must cut spending, but we can't. $1.13 trillion is interest, contractual. Social Security and Medicare are the third rail. Touch them and you die politically. Defense is essential for the wars in Ukraine, Israel, the Pacific, so spending cuts are a myth. To fix the debt, we must tax, but we can't. Taxation kills growth, and the lobbyists ensure the loopholes remain open. To fix the debt, we must grow, but we can't. You cannot grow your way out of debt when debt is 124% of GDP. The debt drag kills productivity. So there is only one option left, the Venezuelan option, the Weimar option. Print, inflate, destroy the currency to save the sovereign. They will let inflation run hot, 4%, 6%, 10%. They will lie about the numbers. They will change the CPI calculation, but you will feel it. Your savings will evaporate. Your pension will be worthless. The bondholders will get paid in confetti. The rich will own the assets. The unit will rise. Gold will rise. Bitcoin will rise. And the dollar, the mighty US dollar, will become a historical artifact. America isn't becoming Venezuela. Financially, we are already there. We just haven't admitted it yet. The market has gold at $4,028 per ounce. That is the market screaming, get out, protect yourself, because when the music stops, and it will stop, the only thing you will own is what you can hold in your hand. Don't blink. This isn't a prediction, it's a report. The data is bolded, the trend is locked, the empire is over. Welcome to the multipolar world. Good luck.